Hello! Before this begins, well, too late, but I'd like to warn you that while I was playing this, I also had Steam running, so there are going to be sounds from, instant messages. I am very sorry. I will never do that again unless I forget again. So, let's talk about my strategy and how I can execute it better if this sort of situation happens again. I believe that moving Kinsato up into that village or town or whatever you want to call it was a good idea. I have no doubt that Kinsato, when played properly, will be able to hold out against the sort of situation he was in. I did, however, make a mistake with my squad decisions here. And the reason for that is this anti-AFW does not have any squads with cleanup. The safest solution for me then would be to put my mechanics on the ground and have them drop 2 mines and then have that anti-AFW walk over them. However, I got greedy and wanted to spray down their squads instead, because Kinsato is very good at that. The trick is, in this situation, it's often very difficult for even the best unit you can come up with to completely remove 2 enemy squads before an anti-AFW closes the distance from short range to close combat range. This is especially true because I need to use my first shell on illumination shot. I will say that moving my one squad back turned out to be a good idea because it minimized the damage from rapid fire, and it didn't actually set me back any because a white phosphorus shot was going to push them back anyway. Can I just officially call them tear gas shots from now on? That's what they do. Or what they are, really, in their effects. What? So the reason that it's very difficult to prevent this sort of thing is that if you take a normal shot at infantry, and their AFW is moving forward, it keeps moving during the shot even though time isn't technically passing, so it gives them some free distance. As a result, this happens. Now, if instead I had held back on that and put down mines, I would be able to stop them, and either they would have to spend their next turn recovering, or they'd attack me again, except there's really not much for me to worry about, because since they couldn't walk, they wouldn't be able to close combat me, and that time I would have plenty of opportunity to remove their squads. Well, lesson learned. My only defense is that by this time I was over 2 hours into the mission and I was getting a little tired, but nonetheless, I'm going to have to keep doing long missions, and I need to get used to making good decisions about them. Now, at first I panicked when I found out that an enemy was able to attack Ayana, and, well, this is kind of a pinch. But the good news is, the enemy has also been softened up quite a lot. It's dangerous, especially because they have ink shrap shells. I haven't allowed them to fire them very often, but in this situation, I need my squads forward to kill the enemy before they kill me. So I need to be exceptionally careful about this. I think that with hyper morale, they can survive an ink shrap okay, but I have to keep a close eye on health. And I could bombard them to prevent them from their squads from doing anything for a short time. That's a safer option. However, I am at medium range, and that their AFW does hit hard even though it's nighttime. So it might be better to just duke it out, since Ayana hits quite hard and she is the more accurate of the two sides right now. Now the right thing for me to do would be to pull back my weakened shooter squad the moment I saw that they had been sniped, because at that point an ink shrap shot would have killed the squad, no question, and because I'm perfectionist that would mean that I start the whole thing over. Thankfully that didn't happen, of course, but it's weird to say that you need to have reasonable reactions during a turn-based game. I guess I could call this half turn-based, half sort of action-based. We need to genreify this game. Someone come up with a good genre name for this in the comments. Also, let's just be grateful that things were not worse. Kurta's squad pulled a lot of weight in that fight. They pulled a lot of weight in this map in general. I don't know how I would deal with chasing off General Minakawa otherwise. But anyway, who's gonna move forward and deal with this four-leg enemy? Well, there you go. And there are some times where I wish I had written down everything that had been going on as I played it, because once an enemy moves out of scouting range, and there are a lot of enemies on the field, it's sometimes tough to remember who's weakened, who still has their squads, who doesn't. Which is, I think that's the real disadvantage of nighttime. The lack of scouting doesn't seem to bother enemy AFWs very much. However, being able to see the enemy's status could really help me a lot. In general, I'll take the improved accuracy most of the time in battle. I've talked about it already, but I feel like it's a huge advantage. Alright, so this is a good opportunity for John to go ahead and get the squads off of this guy. And he should move to the town because he could use the free squad recovery on his own troops. I think the reason I didn't do that was because I was concerned that since I wouldn't actually be able to knock out that anti-AFW, they could just walk up and punch John. I mean, Weizegger just moved and no one else would be really able to reach them in time to finish them off. It might be worth it. I'm not sure. It would probably obstruct the road and delay me in the long term. Alright, note to self. Next time I record a mission, just go ahead and split it up and do voice commentary for all of it over the next day or so instead of spreading it out over I don't know how long. I'm really glad they have a damage drop-off. I suspect that they spent quite a bit of time aiming, because usually there's time for an AFW to take 2 shots. Instead, they decided to fire 1 accurate shot, which was the correct move. But there was still damage drop-off from being at long range, so it worked out, kind of. Excuse me. I kind of doubt that Ayana will be able to do anything for the rest of the map. I mean, she's done plenty. I'm actually not sure if it would be better time-wise to move her onto the road and recover. Because it looks like she'll have to recover twice, and it might be better for her to take... Oh, by the way, the question is, do you think Ippei is alright? Yeah, he's fine. Also, I think that Wei was very smart about checking the moves of their newest AFW pilot before joining battle with him. I like that a lot. That's very indicative of good leadership and consideration of how the unit's going to, I don't know, function in later battles. So good on you. The other thing is, you've already seen Ippei, so you know that Weizegger is absolutely correct about Ippei being just fine. Now this isn't to say that Ayana is foolish for being concerned. I mean, Ippei is basically the only family she has. Oh wow. So I assume that the mechanics planted a mine right there. Which doesn't matter because I definitely don't expect Kinsato to move forward. That would be crazy. And here's another instance of moving the recon back to avoid rapid fire, which also works in the long run because those mechanics are really badly hurt and there's a good chance the AI isn't going to move them forward again, in which case snipe will be very nice to have. So I still have 1 illumination shot yet, but I really don't need to use it. He doesn't hit AFWs hard with his machine gun, and he doesn't especially need the extra accuracy to finish off these squads. It looks like the snipe wasn't even necessary. So then, what I was thinking when I fired off this illumination shot anyway was, first of all, wow, I should have done this a lot earlier, which is true, and secondly, I'm going to need this to hit the enemy more and push him out of close combat range, except it was too late, so the shell was completely wasted. Also, remember that spray fire I threw out in the first battle? That was actually kind of foolish, and the reason is I'm being engaged with stuff that I really need to avoid, like this. So it would be better to just use the maximum attacks for dodges instead of spray fires, since the whole point of this this movement of his was to just go in there and hold out until help arrives. That was a greedy move on my part, and I should not have done it. I think that what I'm going to do in the future for times where I'm not really sure about what I'm doing is, instead of just pressing a button because I'm recording and I have to do something to keep this running smoothly, I can just, I don't know, take my time, check everything thoroughly, and just speed things up if I have to. Also, after those squads are removed, Weizegger comes in to finish things off, as he very often does, especially in this setup. Jun is really far back, and Ayana was damaged, so Weizegger is really the only one who can do this job right now. Now, what I like about this battle is it shows the problem with anti-AFWs if they're engaged at anything other than short range. I mean, yes, they can move forward constantly. However, when there's squads that can push the enemy back, it's really hard for them to close in, especially if they're inclined to stop to shoot like that. The AI, I think that's one of the biggest mistakes they make when running anti-AFWs. Like, whenever their shells are loaded, they feel like they have to stop and shoot. Whereas, almost all of the time, the best thing for them to do would be to not bother to shoot, not bother to move their troops forward, just keep walking until they can punch something. And that's why enemies with quick move are so strong. Also, he blamed the sun at night again. What is wrong with you? So, illumination shots ready. Put that forward. That's one thing that's important to remember. You gotta shoot it, you gotta charge it twice per battle. Anyway, it's really close to close combat range now. And it's stopping to shoot, so never mind, there is no problem. Even though Weizegger is horrible at moving backwards, it should be okay. And if I was actually hit by that shot, it would have pushed me even further. But yeah, when the enemy has quick move, they tend to do what I'm talking about, which is they will just use the skill right away and not worry about shooting or moving their troops or anything, and that makes them way, way more dangerous. Well, Ippei's probably going to sit the rest of this battle out as well, but that's fine. He's done a huge amount already. He took on the most difficult fighting in the entire map, so I'm perfectly okay with this. Now, Kinsato has to swap positions with Ryoko here, because he's out of maximum attacks, he can't dodge, and his health is pretty low. So another move in recovery is gonna put him out of the battle for quite a while as well. Oh, yes, Ryoko is being very strange. We saw it right at the start. That is a wonderful understatement. I need to keep that in mind. Now, I'm going to forgive that because Ippei did not actually talk to Kinsato about that symbol, but it's a bull. Ryoko should at least know better when she notices the emblem. Alright, now John gets to attack. There's a bridge and an enemy blocking the way. There's no way they're going to counterattack. That city is a great choke point. It's just amazing. I wasn't even thinking about that when I had Kinsato move in, and I really should have. But it's a great place to hold at the end of this map. I think John is in a pretty good spot here. He won't be able to walk that much. Also, I find this very annoying because special shells throw off your aim just as strongly as just a normal shot. But since I'm aiming at squads, I guess the effect is not quite as bad. Even so, I'm considering putting Illumination Shot in John's squads somewhere. So there's not much I can do to stop them from moving forward. I'm constantly moving my squads, so I can't move backward that much. I think I mentioned this when Ayana had the same build. The good news is, at medium range, I still shoot just fine. Also, the enemy doesn't have illumination shots either, but to do good damage they'll have to shoot my AFW directly, and they're going to have a lot of trouble with that. Either they have to take a lot of time to aim, which means they don't load many shells over the battle, or they have to take really risky shots. Like that. And that's also a problem with that AFW in particular. We've already mentioned that, and I suspect their accuracy is improved because everything that the North Japan Loyal Army does is better than the standard troops, but even so, they can miss a lot, especially at the further end of medium range. I'm also kind of glad that the first APC shot was fired at long range because you saw the difference. That was 31 versus 51 right there. Also, John is fine. He has plenty of health. It's unlikely that they're going to land another shot. So, if the battle goes on for longer, he can still do things like this for at least another 1 or 2 battles, I'd say. Oh, wow. They didn't even keep those shooters up front for long enough to shoot at anything. That's how scared they were about him. Also, I'm amazed I got a leg shot, and they can't fix it easily either. Creeping Fire. Now that's a very interesting skill that I will not be able to show off this time, because we're busy with other things. What I will say is that Creeping Fire is an artillery attack that hits enemy squads for more damage than Bombard, and it also hits enemy squads in the back line. However, it doesn't have that Terrify effect that Bombard does, where it forces them to the back row. So it's a raw damage attack against ground troops, and I think it really solidifies his role as an anti-squad unit, even though he, of course, also hits enemy AFWs very hard. Well, I think my position is looking pretty good now. Kinsado and Diana were in trouble, but they're in a really safe part of the map now. There's no way the enemy can reach them. And I have enough fresh AFWs and squads to clean things up. I just have to make sure that the details don't go horribly wrong, because I don't know what's... Well, of course I do know what's going to happen now, but at the time I was playing, I don't know what kind of shells the enemy are going to bring exactly. I might get one of my shooter squads hit by an ink shrap at a really bad time and lose them. What I'm saying is that I can't ever relax too much, which is really how these games are supposed to go. You know, there's some things that I could probably test at the start of a map if I wanted to. For example, if a battle is taking place at night, or there's smoke shot or something else inhibiting accuracy, does that also affect the damage of anti-infantry special shells? Because the damage of normal anti-infantry shots are based on accuracy, at least partly. And for that matter, do those things affect maximum attacks that hit squads? Now, I thought that this enemy infantry squad was going to escape for sure. Or maybe take the hit but have only 1 health left. But nope, that's it. They're done. And this video is done. Hopefully we'll be able to clean up everything next time. Later.